This is Jennifer Rogers presenting my capstone records retention. A records retention policy is an important aspect of any corporation or business that has possession of physical or electronic records or files. It basically mandates how long a company is required to hold on to specific types of records and how they can dispose of them. So the company in question is a mid-sized law firm located on the West Coast called SWW. They created a records policy in 1998 using as research a book that was written in the 1980s, and the policy has not been updated since. So, like all law firms, SWW is required to carry insurance, and the insurance company in this case is called ALAS. They have mandated that SWW update and audit a records retention policy every year. This, combined with the rapid advancement of technology, is something that SWW badly needs to do. The specific purpose of a new records retention policy for SWW is to decrease overhead, increase overall efficiency, while ensuring that SWW adheres to ALAS policies and federal and/or state regulations. So this presentation will be looking at how much SWW spends on storing files every year and how to implement the new policy that will rectify that situation and bring down costs. They've been in business over 100 years at this point, and they keep a lot of paper, like most law firms. The Portland office was 5 floors of files, but in 2018, SWW released a floor from their lease in order to save money. And due to that consolidation, over 34,000 files were sent off-site, which means that storage is now costing SWW over $20,000 a month. To break down the numbers a little, we currently have over 400,000 files stored off-site, and the number of files in a box is around 4. And that doesn't seem like much, especially when the cost to store a typical box is only 20 cents a box. But when you have over 100,000 boxes and more showing up every day, it starts to add up. Approximately 40% of the files in offsite storage are eligible for destruction, which means that SWW could be saving over $100,000 a year just in storage. So the storage costs are not the only reason to update the records retention policy. If a new policy is in place, we could be a lot more efficient in a lot of different ways. If we establish procedures for the storage, preservation, and destruction of records and ensure that these policies adhere to ALAS guidelines, cost savings will be found not only in storage, but also in the amount of time needed to find and review documents and clearing conflicts, as well as the creation of files. So over the years, there have been a lot of studies done in regards to records retention. And because of that, there have been some best practices created by ALAS, the American Bar Association, which is the ABA, and a group called the Sedona Conference. The Sedona Conference created something called the Sedona Guidelines, which really have to do specifically with electronic material. And one of the main things that has been recommended is the creation of a records coordinator for each department, because a specific department will know more about their records than a general employee. Another recommendation is the formation of a Records and Information, or RIM committee, which they oversee the records coordinators, the destruction, the yearly audits, and general compliance. Compliance is going to be the hardest part of this entire process because attorneys have never been required to comply before. ALAS, however, has specific compliance recommendations that SWW will be adopting. Basically, how this works is every 6 months, an attorney is sent a list of their files that are eligible for either destruction or closure. And the attorney then has 30 days to respond. If they request that the file not be destroyed, then they have to supply a compelling reason for the hold. And some of those reasons might be that there's a litigation hold, a statute or a rule that they found that says the file must be kept longer, or if they believe the file will be needed by the client in the future. If they don't respond to the list within 30 days, it's sent to them again, along with a copy to their department chair. And if there's no response from either of them in the next 30 days, then the list goes to the RIM committee to resolve. And the RIM committee will be working with the department chair to figure out what to do with all these files. Authorized a file to be destroyed, The firm must make an effort to find any duplicates, and this is also including any electronic copies. So they'll be working with the IT department really closely to find anything that's been scanned into the system. So physical copies can be shredded, and we have a shredding service that comes once a week to do that. Anything that's non-confidential may be destroyed by recycling. We do have a destruction specialist that goes through all files to make sure that there are no confidential material that should be shredded instead of recycled. Certain types of files are never destroyed. So like adoption records, anything that's under a litigation hold, which is when basically that we've been informed that a file is part of a current matter, should never be destroyed or altered in any way. Some files have a really long retention period, like estate planning files. So we always keep an eye out for those and make sure that nothing is destroyed that shouldn't be. Training is a huge part of this entire policy. We have to be able to implement the policy properly. And so any training that's conducted will be done during the via the LMS, the Learning Management System, which can reach all employees. Everyone has access to it, and it will be mandatory training for both staff and attorneys. We'll be creating two types of training programs. The first training path that we'll be creating is for attorneys because they have personal responsibility for the client files. If something happens to the files, they can lose their license to practice law, be given fines, or even go to jail. So they have a separate training that really emphasizes the responsibility. The staff training is more focused on proper creation and storage of files, basically because they don't have the same kind of responsibility. So we just want to make sure that they know what's going on from the beginning. So in conclusion, SWW will be following ELAS standards by auditing and reviewing the policy and retention schedule every year. Statutes and laws change all the time, and we need to ensure compliance. So the RIM committee will also be looking at the data every year to see how many files are held, destroyed, or that we've asked to be just closed. Employees will be required to recertify their training every year, and any changes to the policy will be announced firm-wide as soon as they are implemented. So that is the records retention policy that's been created for SWW. It is currently with the Ethics General Counsel for approval and will then pass to the Board of Directors.